weird not having a podium. I wanted to share reading today. I get the privilege to. I wanted to start with a scripture in Colossians 1. And we'll go from there. Starting in verse 15, it says, "The Son is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. For in him all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities. All things have been created through him and for him. He is before all things, and in him all things hold together. And he is the head of the body, the church. He is the beginning and the firstborn from among the dead, so that in everything he might have the supremacy. For God was pleased to have all his fullness dwell in him, and through him to reconcile to himself all things, whether things on earth or things in heaven, by making peace through his blood shed on the cross. Once you were alienated from God and were enemies in your minds because of your evil behavior. But now he has reconciled you by Christ's physical body through death to present you holy in his sight, without blemish and free from accusation. If you continue in your faith, established and firm, and do not move from the hope held out in the gospel. This is the gospel that you heard, and it has been proclaimed to every creature under heaven, and of which I, Paul, have become a servant." And I've been thinking a lot about this lately. I didn't really grow up in a religious family. I didn't grow up going to church. I didn't really know in my mind that it was, stories and it wasn't true, and anybody who believed it was foolish, but I didn't really know anything about it. And I think it's interesting that the wording in verse 21 here, it says, once you were alienated from God, which I was through my sin, but it says, and you were enemies in your mind. And I feel like we're enemies in your mind, but not in God's mind. Right. And so just thinking about that idea of, even when I was actively against God, God did not feel that way about me. And I feel like that's what gives me hope. Now I'm thinking about the holidays and going home and my family and people that may not know God, but because of Jesus, because of the cross, like they don't need to be, like God doesn't see them as enemies, but Jesus came to be able to reconcile us to him, to shed his blood on the cross so that we don't have to be God's enemies, but that we can be brought into God's family. Right. We can make peace through his blood shed on the cross. So just thinking of, Jesus' time on earth, he was constantly hanging out with the tax collectors and the prostitutes. You look at, even in his death, he's forgiving the thief on the cross and telling him he's going to be there, in paradise. He's saying, God, forgive them because they don't know what they're doing. And it's just that was Jesus' heart, his entire time on earth was just to give and to love people and to help bring that peace and that reconciliation. That's why he came. That was God's, plan from the beginning. He, being kind of outside of time, he knew, humanity would kind of fall in that way, but he didn't want us to remain separated. And so he created this plan through Jesus, and he set all those things in motion. And we've even kind of done a little study, which if anybody has, time on your own to just look at, God has a perfect plan, and the timing that he sent Jesus was the perfect time that Jesus needed to come. All the things in the world that fell into place for, the gospel to be able to be spread around the world from that moment. And I was thinking, even in my own life, he knew the perfect time to reach out to me and the perfect moment that I would be able to hear his word and to seek for him and to find him. And that, you know, he knows that he's known that for every person in this room, and he also knows that, you know, for my family and for the people that don't yet know him. He has a plan. It's a perfect plan. It's the perfect, you know, timing and the perfect thing that each one of us needs, because he loves us, and that's ultimately why he came and why he endured the cross, you know, so that we might be able to, you know, be in relationship with him and be in this community that we have today. So I'm just so grateful to be able to share this morning with all of you. I'm just going to pray with me. Dear God, thank you for your love.